Hi, my name is Robert Chelle with Chelle Law, and I'm an attorney that assists physician assistants with employment contract and independent contractor agreement issues. Today I'm going to talk about malpractice insurance for a physician assistant. So what are the things that you need to look at with the language in your contract, and then what are the differences between the different types of insurance? So generally, if you're a PA, there's two types of insurance that you need to be aware of. One is called claims made, and the other is occurrence, and I'll kind of describe the differences between the two. So with an occurrence policy, a policy has to be in effect when the malpractice event occurs. Therefore, no tail insurance is necessary. You just pay an annual premium, and if something happens, you're covered forever. Now, if you have a claims made policy, a policy has to be in effect when the claim is actually made. So there is a scenario where you could leave an employer, your employment terminates, your claims made policy ends, and there's still going to be a gap in between the last day that you provided care for an employer and then the last day somebody can sue you. And generally, 2 years is kind of a standard statute of limitations for a malpractice claim. There are exceptions, but I'm just going to use that for this video. So since there is a 2-year gap between when your policy ends and the last day somebody can sue you, you need an additional policy that covers that gap, and that's called tail insurance. So who pays for tail insurance is kind of an important thing for some physician assistants. And how it would generally work is if you're an employee, the employer is going to pay for your annual premium. So that just means how much it costs to insure you on an annual basis. And then who pays for tail, it really depends upon the language in the contract. If you're working for a hospital or a healthcare network, very unlikely you're ever going to have to pay for your own tail. Whereas if you're working for a physician-owned practice or maybe a small group, probably 50-50 of whether the PA has to pay their tail or not. So let's talk costs. And this could matter if you're an independent contractor as well, because generally, 9 times out of 10, if you're an independent contractor, they're going to want you to pay for your own malpractice insurance. So an occurrence policy, as I said before, does not need tail insurance, but it's generally about a third more expensive per year. So if you're paying, $2,000 for a claims made policy, it'll be a third more expensive if you're going to get an occurrence policy. If you're doing part-time work at a bunch of different places, then occurrence is obviously the way to go, so you don't have to pay a bunch of different tails everywhere else. So if you had a claims made policy, as I said before, it's usually about a third less per year, but tail is generally about twice what your annual premium is. So once again, if your annual premium is $2,000, then you would double that, and that would be what it will cost for tail insurance. Now, it's a one-time payment. You don't have to pay it every year. You would generally need to secure it before your last day of employment with your current employer. And then you would, if you're responsible for it, you would pay the insurance company. The tail would be in place, and then you would be covered for that, kind of 2-year period. Now, you can buy different lengths of tail. So, many states allow malpractice claims for minors all the way up until they're 18. And so if you're doing a bunch of peds work or something like that, working with minors, then you would want a tail that extends beyond that period, obviously. You can buy kind of an indefinite tail. It'll cost a little bit more. But that's why I find generally occurrence, if you just do the math, generally works out better for the PA. Now, malpractice insurance for a PA on an annual basis is not prohibitively expensive. For the most part, somewhere between $1,500 to $3,000. It will be dependent upon kind of what specialty you're working in and what's the specialty of your, collaborating physician. But for the most part, it will be within that range. So not, a terrible cost, but still something that you can negotiate with the employer and they can cover. So that's a little primer on malpractice insurance for physician assistants. The language in the contract is very important, and so you want to make sure that is dialed in before you sign anything, or you're going to have perhaps some costs that you weren't anticipating before you entered into the arrangement with the employer. If you have any questions about your employment agreement or independent contractor agreement, feel free to contact my law firm. All of our contact information is listed below in the description. And I appreciate you watching the video. Thanks. Take care.